All right, and welcome to Consistently Cashing this week. As always, I'm Bob Lung, and I'm usually always here, which I am. No, actually, I'm not. I lied. Normally, this is, of course, Colby Conway and Ron Rigney. And guess what? Good news. Ron Rigney's here. We're happy to have him back. So, everybody, Ron, tough week for you, I know. But other than that, how's it going? And how do you feel about your DFS this week? How'd you guys do last week?
I think I don't know how Colby did. I know that mine was yet again another train wreck this week. It's like I have the right combo of players. It's just between the honorable mentions and my actual lineup, I haven't been able to kind of put it together. So yeah, I felt good about it 2 weeks ago. Did well. Didn't do so well last week. Really hoping to change that yet again this week. I hope that one of these weeks we can quit saying I can quit saying that, and I actually will cash for you. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens this week. But yet again, got some matchups on here that I think are some can't miss stuff.
Right. So, as always, we got some really good picks, and I'm going to kind of talk about Colby's picks because he's out of town for the weekend, and you're going to do yours. So, the start of the quarterback position. This may be a shocker to all you people who always listen to us every week, but Colby Conway picked Deshaun Watson. Are we stunned? I don't think we
No.
are. Not at all, and for good reasons. He's got at least 18 FanDuel points in every game this year, but one last week, 26.86. That Tim Kelly offense had some flashbacks to Watson's electric rookie season. He's thrown 10 touchdowns in four career games against the Titans. Houston will need to score a lot in this contest if they need to run the ball more. If he starts to run the ball more, he could be fantasy gold. On the DraftKings side, Colby took Kirk Cousins. I'm sure that's some kind of value pick, but I think I know why, because this week Minnesota is going against Seattle, who also has one of the poorest pass defenses out there. So, Ron, who did you put at your quarterback position for your FanDuel and DraftKings?
So I went with our boy AA Ron for both of those. Coming off a bye week, graded out so far as Pro Football Focus's top offensive player across the board. So he's got to be doing something right. He's getting Devontae Adams back this week. Robert Tonyan has come on at the tight end spot. They've, Marquez Valdez-Scantling as a wide receiver too there has looked pretty solid. He's got weapons coming out of the backfield. Playing a Bucs defense that's been kind of middle of the road as far as fantasy points allowed to the position, but they have allowed about 1,300 yards to quarterbacks, which puts them right around number 10 as far as the most yards allowed. So I think this has a potential. I think this has like about a 55 total. I think with the Packers defense being able to not stop the run, you might hear Ronald Jones' name a little bit later on, but I think there's going to be enough points scored in this that I think Aaron Rodgers, he's dialed in. He's got the chip on his shoulder. He's ready to go. I think he's a nice pick. I think it's a good week to pay up for him in both your FanDuel and your DraftKings.
Perfect, perfect. All right, let's run over to the running back position. Colby goes with Derrick Henry, and why? Because they're going against the Houston Texans. You should always start every one of your running backs that are going against the Houston Texans for good reason, because they stink. They can't stop anybody. Houston's allowed the seventh most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. I'm surprised it's not higher. And no one, and I mean no one, has allowed more rushing yards at that position. Henry has always been a stud so far this year, averaging 72 yards a game in his career against the Texans. That's on the FanDuel side. He also got a pick. Well, I'll let you talk about that one. So his other ones were Myles Gaston, the DraftKings one, David Montgomery as well, and then Jonathan Taylor as his other running back on the FanDuel side. Ron, why don't you talk about your picks that you got at running backs and why you're moving in that direction with those guys?
Well, what I found at running back this week, there's a lot of mid to low priced guys that I think have some really excellent matchups, and whether it's my flex or whether it's my running back spot, you'll see quite a few of those. Of course, I went with Alex Madison. He's $7,000, so he's a little bit more expensive than some of my other picks. But with Dalvin Cook being out, if you watched any of that game last week against Seattle, Alex Madison looked really explosive when he was in there. He looked, every bit the part as far as filling in for Dalvin Cook, who's out this week. So I like him there. A little bit cheaper, but not as cheap as the other guys I'm going to go over here. And between my FanDuel and my DraftKings, you'll see Adrian Peterson, you'll see Antonio Gibson, you'll see Ronald Jones. All of those guys have some excellent matchups. A guy that I really, really like that I wasn't able to get in is James Robinson with Jacksonville. I think, there's a lot of moving parts there as far as your regular fantasy and your DFS to like. But Adrian Peterson is leading in touches, leading in snaps as far as the running back position in Detroit. They have Jacksonville, who's ninth worst against the running back as far as fantasy purposes. And all these guys are right in that 5,500 to 5,800 range. And I think Ronald Jones, like I said, the Packers aren't very good against the run. And Antonio Gibson has a really good shot, I think, both rushing and receiving to lead that backfield and maybe even get in the end zone once. So a lot of nice lower end options there that are very, very affordable if you're paying up for the Aaron Rodgers of the world. And you'll see here in a little bit, I'm paying up a little bit at receiver this week.
Right. And like you said, Green Bay fantasy points given up to running backs, second worst in the NFL. Only Carolina is worse than that one. So good call on that one. Definitely love that. All right, let's go to the wide receivers here. We've got quite a selection. It kind of looks like Aaron, Jesus, Colby. Why did I say Aaron? Because we said Aaron Rodgers. Colby looks like he's kind of going maybe in a more of a cheaper scenario. Maybe he's got some Devontae Parker, some Will Fuller, Adam Thielen, AJ Brown, Brandon Cooks, and also Adam Thielen in his DraftKings as well. But let's talk about the Adam Thielen one. Despite the different position, Dalvin Cook is out. So guess what they got to do? Madison doesn't run the ball well. They need to throw a lot. And so far, Thielen has been exactly what he used to be. Last year was a down year for year. He's definitely heading towards comeback player of the year. But in the 6 games last year, when Cook did not play, in 2018, 2019, when Dalvin Cook didn't play, Thielen averaging nearly 7 more fantasy points per game than he usually would. So he has at least 8 grabs for 80 yards and a touchdown, 2 straight games. Falcons have been incredibly generous, as we said before, against wide receivers. Let me double check, but they are 25th. So definitely a bad defense according to our system. He's 80% consistent on the year, looking for his 5th clutch game in 6 tries. So Ron, tell us about your picks and some of the guys that you like in your lineups.
Well, if you look at my FanDuel lineup, I went Devontae Adams, Laviska Shenault, Chase Claypool. And then if you look at the DK line, and this is one of the weeks that I have a lot of differences in between the two, but there's still those few building blocks I've built around. In the DK2 lineup, I went with Juju, I went with Thielen, and then I went with Marquez Valdez-Scantling just because I believe that Packer offense, like I said earlier with Aaron Rodgers, is going to score some points. Laviska Shenault, probably one of my favorite rookies. I mentioned they're up against the Lions. Lions top 10 worst against the receiver from fantasy standpoint. And Chase Claypool coming off a week where he was lights out. I'm not expecting another 4-touchdown effort, but with Deontay Johnson out, I think him and Juju kind of mix and match there. So it just kind of depends upon where you spent your money in other places. The DK lineup, I could afford Juju. The FanDuel lineup, I went down a little bit and went with Chase Claypool. So a little bit of variation there, but I think there's quite a few receivers, kind of if you want to pay up, like I said, Devontae Adams, $9,000 coming off the injury, but he had an extra week to sit out. I read where he wanted to go last time they played. They told him to go ahead and rest it and then sit out that bye week. I think he's going to be back full force. So I think he's going to be worth that $9,000 if you want to pay up for it.
Got it. No question there. So, all right, let's move into the tight end position. I'm sure this has been a tough one this year because it's always hard to, find the guys that you can count on. The consistency has not been there, especially depth-wise for the tight ends that we thought of this year. Basically, if you don't have Travis Kelce, if you don't have, one of those guys, Kittle's even had his down, but mostly because of injury. But 2 guys that has been good this year so far, Mark Andrews and Jonnu Smith. And I saw that both you and Colby have those guys in there. But Colby also picked TJ Hawkinson. Of course, Kelce will be popular this week, but Hawkinson does have the Jags, who have allowed 4 touchdowns in positions. Only the Bills and Saints have allowed more receiving yards to the tight ends. And if I look at the sheet here, as he mentioned, Jacksonville 24th in total fantasy points given up. So definitely very bad. So been 50% consistent for the year. Not great, but PPR formats, he has at least 8 fantasy points a game, grabs, so again, we're going for the consistently cash and we're going for the guy with the lower floor. Maybe not a higher ceiling, but a lower floor. That's where he's going with TJ Hawkinson. Ron, talk about your picks that you have for your tight end.
Well, Mark Andrews, you mentioned him in my FanDuel lineup. He's been a little more consistent than Evan Ingram. I know we liked him a lot heading into the season, and just that Giants offense has just been a disaster. But Mark Andrews, still, even though the Lamar Jackson is kind of having a down year compared to what he did last year, I think Mark Andrews is still his go-to guy. He's still the guy he's looking for, and he's got an Eagles team that's fifth worst against the tight end fantasy purposes. And then Evan Ingram going against Washington football players, and they're number 4 worst. So, and think about Evan Ingram as well, is I had to find a guy that was a little bit less expensive. And if Evan Ingram can't find the end zone this week and put up a few receptions and a few yards, then there's something really, really wrong with the Giants. I mean, he's going to be able to do that. So, for the price that you pay for him, I think he was a solid fit in that lineup. But I think him and Andrews are the top 2 for me. But I also do like that Jonnu Smith and that T.J. Hawkinson pick from that Detroit-Jacksonville game too.
Gotcha. All right. Last but not least, it's always the defenses. Man, sometimes if you can get the right pick with these, you can really help your team, especially if you get a defense that may not be very high valued, out there. Colby seems to go with Cincinnati. He takes the Bengals. He's a lot of injuries on the defense, which scares the crap out of him. But Phillip Rivers is a walking turnover, and he is. He's no question about it. I saw him against the Browns last week. And if Jonathan Taylor runs it down their throats, perhaps it's not his highest scoring game. So we're banking on Rivers turnover too. Maybe the defense finds the end zone here. And at this price, why the heck not? Don't blame him. Your thoughts?
I like it, even though it's against my Colts. I cannot argue with anything he said against what Phillip Rivers has done or not done. He is 0 for 5 as far as earning a clutch game. And if you watch him play football, it's pretty easy to see why he is 0 5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So there's our picks for the week. As always, don't forget, if you want to get the full update here and get the articles every week, join our VIP subscription at Big Guy Fantasy Sports. Use promo code CC for consistently cashing. 2020, get $5 off your VIP subscription. And Ron, as we head into this week, we're wishing you good thoughts and on both your trip and your fantasy teams and your DFS, so we can get some money in everybody's pockets. And so once again, as always, thanks for being a part of this. So, all right, for Ron Rigney, I'm Bob Lung. Everybody have a great week, and we'll all be back next week, probably in different situations and seats here on these shows, but that's okay. It's always good to be able to help everybody out and help our Big Guy Fantasy Sports followers and subscribers. So have a good week. Take care. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.